Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 92. Courage is about actually doing it. So as you know, all month we've been talking about courage, riding the winds of change as we put in motion some of the wonderful motivation we've been building. Well, today I want to get into how it doesn't matter how badly you want to make healthy changes in your life until you actually start doing something. And I know you know that. And if what I just said made you feel a bit anxious, you are so not alone. Because it's one thing to dream and to plan, to identify exactly what we need to do, but it's a whole nother thing to actually start making it real. That's why it takes the most courage to just pull the first trigger. Real changes things. It'll change you and change your life. It's the part where you risk success and also possibly failure. The biggest issue here, I think, is letting go of the damn outcomes and just doing it. Because something else is entirely more important right now. We've talked many times over the episodes about getting closely in touch with your why and getting solid about your why. When we're still a little bit ambivalent, we're contemplating change, but we're not ready to change. You have to be sold on it. And you have to want so badly what is on the other side. Along with, hand in hand, I think both are important, what you are so sick and tired of sitting in right now. And how you refuse to do this for one more day, one more month, one more year, because you're disgusted, you're done, it doesn't serve you anymore. You've already started outgrowing where you are. And I want to stop for a moment and say, like we've talked about, we're always getting ready to be ready to be ready. It took work to get to where you are if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Remember, we start with denial where we don't even realize there's a problem. Then we start getting more and more frustrated, resentful, overwhelmed, perhaps angry, irritable, and really desperate for change. That's a process where we have to keep hitting our head time after time until we find a different doorway. Because it's finally time where the weight's got to go, the misery needs to stop, the toxic relationship needs to be put in the rearview mirror, old versions of yourself or who you want to put in the past. You're ready. You're ready for change, and you're ready to actually start doing it. I think there's a lot of anxiety around our perception of what it means to get started. And so here are a few words that mean to get started: to act, to move, to proceed, to start, to take measures, to react, to begin, to respond, to do something, to take steps. What I want you to do is find a word that feels palatable for you, because you're still afraid of what the outcome might be. So what if you tell yourself something to the effect of, I'll take a few steps, but I can backtrack if this doesn't go well. I'll give myself an out. I'll just begin, because beginning doesn't have any kind of negative connotation for me, perhaps. Just means I'm starting, which means I can be new and I can be scared and I don't have to have it perfectly done yet. That kind of thing. So find some kind of word or phrase that feels okay for you because of the connotation that it holds. The other thing that really affects our ability to just pull the trigger is expectancy theory of motivation, and that is by Vroom. And he says that individuals are motivated to do something by three things. We're motivated when we value the reward associated with an action. Here's the kicker, though. They trust that they'll receive the reward if they do a good job and believe they have the ability, the efficacy to achieve their objectives by working hard. So we want to look at what you're trying to change here, and you need to see at least the first couple steps as doable. I don't think you need to see the whole path. I just don't. I want to get into more about, okay, what stands in the way of us just taking action? Like, why haven't we done it yet? Well, as we spoke about earlier, I said you were getting ready to be ready to be ready. You had to work through some emotional, psychological, and maturational things. So some of those you may never put your finger on. Some of those you might be well aware of. One of the biggest things, and we've talked about this before, that I think gets in the way of pulling any kind of trigger is the prison of perfectionism. Because we're waiting for everything to be just right. Till we have enough time, till we have enough money, till we look just right, until everyone's happy. Fill in the blank. That's not to say that timing isn't a big deal and that we want to be considerate of whether this feels like the right time. But there's a difference between right and perfect. And if you wait and wait and wait, it'll never happen. Because there's always going to be something that comes up that throws a monkey wrench into your plans. You have to see if it's a good enough time. Is it going to really hurt your life to start this now? Is it going to hurt someone you love? Not talking about hurting their feelings. They may not be happy with your changes, but I mean harm. So perfectionism, having to do it perfectly or not at all, I want you to define what is good enough. What's 84.2%? Something you can even tweak and make better later kind of thing. Another big one that gets in the way is the way we rationalize. Boy, we can rationalize anything, can't we? We can just make excuses for everything. Gosh, if we took half the energy that it takes to do that and put it into taking some healthy action, it's amazing where we might be today. We rationalize. Well, it's better that I'm waiting because so-and-so might be upset, or I've got too much on my plate right now, or work is too busy, or. So I want you to look at maybe ways that you're rationalizing some things, and I want you to think of what would your best friend say to that? What would she look you in the eye right now and tell you? Then why? Why some of that is BS, why that doesn't necessarily have to be true. He may even say, so what? We need to hear some of those things from people who are healthy enough to tell us the truth. We need to tell ourselves the truth. We're not going to make any really healthy changes until we get honest. You know that already. Another obvious one is procrastination. Again, perfectionism plays a hand in that. Waiting until you can do it perfectly, putting it off because you want to avoid anxiety and you want to stay in your box like we talked about last time. Procrastination will keep you from challenging yourself. It'll also keep you from having what you want. So you have to decide how much power you want to give procrastination in your life. Then there's what I call the rationalization about our procrastination. Well, the week just got away from me. Well, I'm not really good at time management, or this happened and that happened. Here comes the boundary work, right? Because we're not prioritizing. We're not saying no to people, places, and things, so we can say yes to getting this particular thing started. We're going to have to say no to some things that we already have going on in our life in order to create some new changes. And so that is why it's a whole self-inventory piece when we're getting ready to pull the trigger on something. Now, you can also do the trick of doing it backwards, where just start something new. If you're not ready to let go of the old yet, start the new thing, see how good it feels. Then I promise you'll get rid of that old habit. You'll pull away from old things that you used to do that maybe were time wasters. just busy work, things like that. Another big way, and again, all these are interconnected, is overthinking things. Well, what about this and what if that? Not to say you don't want to think about true consequences and benefits of pulling the trigger on something, but I'm talking about taking it to the nth and doing a flow chart that's 52 pages long. Don't overthink it. Let it alone. You'll never pull the trigger because there will always be a what-if scenario that you might be worried about. And this ties into the next one, not having accountability. Left to your own devices, you won't pull the trigger or you would have already done it, right? So we need to keep accountability around us, 1, 2, or 3 people who love us enough to tell us the truth and to call us out on our BS and our fear and our excuses and the way we keep ourselves stuck. They're calling us out to love ourselves enough to create the kind of life that feels good for us. And we have to tell on ourselves to them, and we have to take the ownership of asking them to call us out. We got to check in with them. We got to tell them when we're scared. We got to tell them when we procrastinated again today. We have to be honest so that they cannot shame us or judge us, but say, look, let's look at your fears again. Let's look at your excuses. Let's turn them on their head. And let's get you back to being serious about why the hell you wanted to do this in the first place. We need to be reminded, I think, of our truth because it's so vulnerable. And we haven't put it out there yet, and we're afraid to. It's like you're standing behind the curtain that's getting ready to open on stage. They're backstage with you. And that's where you got to keep them, and you have to keep in touch. Okay, so those are typical things that get in the way for us of pulling the trigger. They're all fear-based, as you can see. I want you to start migrating more into choice. Like we said last week, I'd rather have you angry right now than not in terms of being angry enough at the status quo that is not good for you, the ways you are settling for less than what you want in your life, and getting serious about honoring yourself because you do deserve better. We all do. So how do we change this? First of all, I want you to realize and remember that courage just means, yeah, you're afraid. Yet other things are more important, like I keep saying, and you don't want to keep living like this. And that's what I want you to keep reminding yourself of. Your why, your why, your why. Why you want to do this. What have been the big pain points for you this past year not having changed this? For someone wanting to lose weight, but putting it off, maybe some health issues have resulted from that. Now they got a cluster of things going on. Someone who is struggling financially, but stuck in a job that doesn't allow them to be promoted, so they need to make a big change. It's not that you're not afraid. Is you got to get into choice and make decisions. Do you want to keep living like this, and for how long? How long is okay, right? Because we all have in our head like what we will really tolerate and what we don't. We may not realize this, but we do, right? Because when I look at clients and I say, so 10 years from now, you're still in this unhealthy relationship, and they get all upset like, no, there's no way. There's no way, Mary. I'm like, okay. So what's the difference between today and 9 years from now? And then we talk about that. Not much, really. Now, of course, sometimes that person may need to take steps, typically financially, to be able to get out of an unhealthy relationship that they're financially dependent on, of course. But that's not 9 years. All right, so here are some simple ways to get started changing. I want you to take note of these or play this back later if you're not in a place where you can write them down. Notice ones that resonate with you. Might be 1, might be 4 of them, but just trust that Because if they resonate, I believe those are the ones you're supposed to begin with. The first one is get up and do something today. Even if you're listening to this at night, do something small today that you can do. Even if that is calling one of your wonderful accountability people and say, I'm going to do this week. And I'm ready and I mean it. The other thing is tomorrow, get up and do something else. Stay moving and don't sit down. Create the momentum that is so important to keep you motivated while you're doing this. Next, remember how we've been talking about many times over the episodes about taking smaller steps if you're afraid to take the bigger ones, because every step begets another and they all really add up over time. You don't have to make huge moves. In fact, empowerment comes from doing. The smaller steps are going to empower you. You're already moving in the right direction. They're going to get you there to take the harder steps later. But by the time you get to the harder steps, like we keep talking about, you're not going to be the same person. You're not going to be in the same headspace. Think about the last time you achieved something, like maybe even something simple, like started painting one room in the house. That felt really good, didn't it? And you cleaned it up and maybe redecorated the space. You cleaned out your car, the garage. You donated a bunch of stuff. You organized the kitchen. Whatever you did, think about how good that felt and how motivated you felt to be able to do more. That's what I'm talking about. Every step begets another. I don't even care where you start. Just start with whatever seems doable on your radar. Some people like to start with the biggest dumpster fire. I have a lot of clients who want to do that, and that's cool. Might be most detrimental if we don't get to it first. So go ahead and grab what's worst and figure out what you can do to fix it. Another big thing about this work is being as proactive as we can be and not as reactive. You don't want to be putting out fires that keep popping up all around you. You want fire prevention. So we want to get planning and do the domino thing like I keep talking about. Okay, let's say you want to do something next week. What do you need to do this week to be able to pull that off? Right? That's called structuring and boundaries. How do I set myself up so that's even freaking possible for me to do? That's a big way we can self-sabotage and not even realize it, where we're not doing the setup and the structuring to make it plausible and possible for us to make that change, for us to pull that trigger. There's a lot of boundary work that can go into this. We really want to be proactive. The more proactive you are, you know this, the more empowered you're going to feel. Nobody feels empowered reacting to shit. We know that. It's awful. You feel victimized. You feel life just keeps coming at you. Why does this stuff keep happening, right? So try to be as proactive as you can. You don't have to be a fabulous planner or a logistical wizard. It's mostly common sense stuff here. You can always enlist help, support, or a coach if you need some help in this area. Another big thing I think is so important, and clients teach this to me all the time, keep your why in front of you in whatever ways work for you. Sometimes I keep quotes where I can see them when I'm working on something, messages that come up on your phone, a list of things that you see early and often. Your best friend reminding you when you start getting wobbly knees and afraid you can't do this, they remind you why. That'll keep you motivated. It'll also become more important than your fear. I think what's really helpful too is make a list of the wonderfuls. I call them the wonderfuls. The wonderfuls you will have, that you will do, and be when you start making things different. Get that dream board going. Get that vision going. I want you to visualize this so you can taste every detail as if it already really happened. And affirm that you already are that new person. You see them. You see them in the near future. They're doing great. They're happier. What's different? What have they pull the trigger on. I read the other day, action is the impetus for motivation. Remember, we don't get motivated, then take action. We take action, then we get motivated. A big thing here, too, is to make sure that we have healthy expectations. Your dream can be huge. I don't want you to limit your dream or your goal. But getting there, I want you to take realistic steps to start because you need some good, healthy progress under your belt to have hope. Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, is a good motivational speaker. He wrote a blog. It's called The Rule of Five, How to Learn to Take Action. And this is what he did. He calls it a powerful strategy to get you in action and keep you in action. He calls it the Rule of Five. And he says, here it is. Every day, do 5 things that will move you closer to your goal. 5 concrete action steps. And they can be small steps. Like if you're self-employed, he says, do 5 things to grow your business. Make some phone calls. Do the work that needs to be done. If you want a promotion on your job, he says, do 5 things a day to improve your skills and knowledge so you'll be eligible to be promoted. Remember the footwork, the planning, the proactivity we were just talking about. He says, even if you accomplish just 5 things a week, think about it, 5 things a week, he says that's more than most people do in a month to achieve their dreams. Wow, that's pretty amazing, I thought. So 5 things, 5 little things this week. Can you imagine? Can you see things that are actually within your control, things you can actually do? You can even just wake up 5 minutes earlier and feel more motivated. Things like that. There's nothing too small in this list, guys. Do not compare out to others who might be doing bigger, badder things that you want to do. I want you to start where you are. What are 5 things? So another resource, we've been talking about The Obstacle is the Way, the book by Ryan Holiday. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what he says about taking action. He says the biggest thing is our discipline of perception. Discipline of perception. He says we need to become more rational and disciplined, which means, he says, resisting temptation to just throw our hands up, have a tantrum, flail on the floor, and give up. Or maybe get tempted to get diverted. Here's a big one, and you people know who I'm talking about, who easily get diverted like squirrel from what they were trying to do because someone in your life needed something. Someone was frustrated by something. Someone had chaos du jour going on. So you dropped what you were doing for yourself, and here we go. And that's what he calls temptation. Don't get caught up. Stay focused. He says we need to remain calm during the chaos. He says resist impulse and just keep going. You're going to be tested. The joke is you try something new, the universe has a field day trying to throw obstacles in your way. And one belief is to see how serious we are. And I know that many people have said, and I know for me, there have been times in my life where a huge obstacle came my way and diverted me. But then I realized, oh, hell no. And it just really helped me solidify what I truly, truly wanted. So I kind of had to take that mini detour to just reaffirm, oh yeah, that's right. I don't want that, I want this. But detours can be detrimental, so we don't want to make them the rule. We want to make them the exception. Ryan says, don't let your fears and your negative emotions take your eyes off your goal. You can have your feelings, honor them for a moment, then get back on track. He said Rockefeller talked about how blessed he was to struggle because the difficulties to overcome is where we learn. You know, we climb that mountain. If it were easy to get to the top, would it mean so much to get to the top? Like if you had a chairlift bring you up there, is it the same? Then struggling and falling and getting back up again and hurting your knee. And there were times where you had to pull courage from some orifice to keep going. No, that's what makes the journey worth it. And that's what we need to remember. Bought and paid for is the best. He said, stop seeing problems as problems and see them more as things to be solved and opportunities within the difficulty. He also goes on to say how obstacles kind of carve out the path, like water does through rock over time. Creates the path. That's interesting when you think about it. If you talk to anyone who has a really successful story, it often is formed by obstacles early in life. Someone growing up in poverty, deciding they will do anything it takes to be rich and never be poor again. Things like that. So not reacting emotionally, Ryan says, is the big thing. Not that we don't have our feelings, that we don't let our feelings determine whether we're going to get back on the course. He said unhelpful perceptions throw off our compass, and that we have a choice about how we respond to situations, and I think that's huge. Our attitude is everything. Again, not to deny your feelings, but I want you to decide, what kind of filter do you want to use? Do you see the opportunity? Do you see the lesson? Do you see the blessing? Do you see the gift? Do you see how this forced you, like creating diamond out of rock? To see your strengths? To see how strong you really are? If that shit hadn't happened, would you have seen that? That's what we got to step back and get perspective. Get some help with that if you're struggling. Sometimes when we're sitting in it, all we can see is the bleh, all the bad stuff. Sometimes our best friend needs to point up, oh, wait a minute. Look at the good things here. Look at that force to happen in your life. So not letting your feelings run the show anymore, especially not your fear. Another big thing he talked about, which I think is really important, is just stay in the moment. Focus on the present moment. What little things do you actually have control over, he says. Deploy your logic, recognize your power, and just take some steps. Every step you take will guide you to the next one. You don't have to control the process. Because what power we give others, we give circumstances, can determine how our life turns out. Is that what you want? Or do you want to decide where it goes from here in as much as you can control? I'm not saying bad things don't happen to us. But like Ryan says, we decide what we will make of each situation, what will break us, and what we will resist instead. He said no one can force us to give up or believe we can't do something. He says we are never, ever completely powerless because we can change our perception, we can change our attitude in terms of how things affect us as well. So that's from The Obstacle is the Way. The link is in the show notes if you want to check that out. It's a great book. Talking about our perceptions, staying in the moment, not overthinking, not looking too far out in the future, not reacting. We talked about getting clear, doing some planning, and that means you're going to have to take some time for yourself. But I promise you, if you just took 15 minutes a day for a couple of weeks and had time to get grounded and to plan, I wonder what would change for you. Just recentering with ourselves, getting quiet. In fact, meditation, we keep hearing, they say is the best way to get focused and to get quiet, to turn off your brain and see what guidance comes for you. So I think choosing to continue to remind yourself what you want, why you want it, why you need to change, and to hell with others and to hell with it and with all of it, because you're not going to let them steal your joy or your dream. So like we've been talking about, I think it's time to rewrite the story. What's done is done. What's happened has happened. But you get to choose how you want to rewrite the ending. Now, how much freedom is in that? I want you to think about some things for a moment. You will be more focused on this moment and take your eyes off the rest for now. You can worry about that later. Because you're going to be more powerful with every seemingly small step you are taking. You're beginning to feel proud that you've taken some actions already. I want you to feel proud for even being ready to change, because it took a lot for you even to get here. You're beginning to see yourself differently already. You're realizing that if you can change this, well, then you can change all those other things you were afraid maybe you couldn't. Thinking about what that door opens up for you can be so amazing. When you get there, you'll see what I mean. In the near future, you're going to be so much more relaxed and happy as you continue to honor yourself. You're also feeling more motivated, having made some small changes, because it's going to make you want more. And then you see the possibility of more as well. What an open door of fresh air in the spring it will feel like. Your life is becoming something you can actually be proud of because it's looking more and more congruent with who you really are at the core. And that's what this is all about. You want to make changes because you want to get back in touch with who you really are. Because you got sidetracked by unhealthy behaviors and fear and other people's unhealthiness and bad things happening that just really kicked you in the can. But you get to redefine, recreate, re-narrate how you want your story to look. That's the beauty of it. And even though you may feel stuck in some big ways, there are always small changes you can make, even by taking 15 minutes a day for yourself. If you practice self-care, if you get loving accountability around you, if you take time to journal about what you want and why, the more you get honest with yourself, it will unfold just as it should. What I witness over the years is that clients come to me, eventually, they just let it roll out. They design and create their own process. I just kind of help get them to a point where they can pull the trigger. So today we talked about courage. Courage to get moving and to take small steps instead of just continuing to talk and talk about it. It ain't real until we make it happen. And we can't begin to feel motivated to keep expanding until we start. So just start. You can screw it up, start it over, who cares? Just get moving. Do something that's going to feel good this week. Because life doesn't change while we're standing still. It only changes when we change. Thank you so much for joining me today. May you find your courage this week. Stay healthy and grounded. Continue to hold on to hope. I want you to look for courageous moments and acts in others this week. I want you to look around you and look for courage. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. If you want to check out any of the resources that we talked about today, sign up for the newsletter each Tuesday. Join our Facebook group. We have a small but mighty group there. We'd love to have you. All right, so pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.